Syracuse is one of the toughest teams to project in college football in 2025. They could, if everything breaks right, make the college football playoff, but they could also miss a bowl game altogether. Let's discuss it more here on Locked On Syracuse.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in a Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, whether you're watching this on YouTube, you're listening on Apple, Spotify, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, it's a Syracuse football floor ceiling combination. If everything breaks right, where could Syracuse finish in 2025? If things don't break well for Syracuse, where will they finish? We will talk about the 2024 comparison later on in the show. We will go over the schedule for Syracuse, how it works for them and against them. And we will also discuss the quarterback play here on today's show as we try to predict how Syracuse football will do in 2025. Now, before we get to everything, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Syracuse football is the most unpredictable team to project in 2025. On this segment, we are going to go over, if everything breaks right, what's the ceiling for Syracuse football? This will be optimistic. And then later on, we're going to talk about what happens if things don't really go their way. And then we're also going to compare it to how we felt about them going into 2024. Okay? But let's discuss the ceiling. The best case scenario for Syracuse football, factoring in the roster, the quarterback play, the schedule, is 9-3 in the regular season with a shot at making the college football playoff. I'm going to break down my reasoning in just a second, but I would love to hear your thoughts right now in the comment section below. If everything breaks right for Syracuse football, what do you think their ceiling is for 2025? Can you see this team making the college football playoff? I want to hear from you in the comment section below. Let's start out with this. If Syracuse is going to be really good this upcoming season, that probably means they hit once again in the transfer portal at the quarterback position, which, of course, in football, quarterback is the most important position on the field. Last year, there was more certainty at the position. Kyle McCord was coming over from Ohio State. He was a full-time starter there, and even though he might have underachieved according to many people around the country, many insiders, many prognosticators, experts, people around Syracuse, including myself and probably including you as well, knew that, hey, he's at least going to be pretty good for Syracuse. In fact, I actually went on here and predicted that Kyle McCord would finish second team All ACC. That's one thing that I got right about Syracuse football a year ago, is that Kyle McCord would finish second team All ACC. And even though he actually did finish second team All ACC, he still managed to exceed my expectations, setting all the records that he did a year ago in passing yards and touchdowns, 300-yard games at Syracuse. He was absolutely fantastic. Obviously, Kyle McCord's no longer here, but that doesn't mean they can't still not hit on the quarterback position. And if Syracuse is going to realize its ceiling, it means they likely got really strong quarterback play from either Notre Dame transfer Steve Angeli or LSU transfer Rickie Collins. It's tough to project how either quarterback is going to do, but the good news is that Syracuse retained offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon. Jeff Nixon was hired by Fran Brown last year. He was coming over from the NFL as a running backs coach. he did a phenomenal job. Syracuse had one of, if not the best offenses in the country. It was a methodical passing game type of offense. Kyle McCord was in the shotgun all the time, the run and shoot, really, to be exact for you all. If you really want to get all technical, that's kind of the offense that Syracuse ran a year ago. It worked to perfection, or near perfection, as close as you can get. He's back. Syracuse does not have to change systems. For them, it's about finding players who can fit the system. So hopefully Syracuse football struck gold once again in the transfer portal, whether it's Rickie Collins or Steve Angeli. He fits the system, and therefore Syracuse will have a chance to get to 9-3 and the college football playoff. But there's more to it and how Syracuse can realize its full potential here. The schedule. We've talked a lot about the schedule here on this podcast and how tough it is. And trust me, on the next segment, we're going to discuss how the schedule also works against them, right? But think about it this way. Here are the road games for Syracuse football. And yes, I'm going to include Tennessee because even though it's not technically a road game, it is a road game because neutral site is not on your home field. And it's in Atlanta. But here's what it is. You got Tennessee neutral site technically, at Notre Dame, at Clemson, at Miami, at SMU, at Georgia Tech. It's not like their home schedule is super easy either. They're still going to play good teams as well, but that's their road schedule. But the reason why I say their ceiling is 9-3 with a shot at making the college football playoff is because that schedule in a way does work for them, if that makes sense. If Syracuse were to go 9-3 in the regular season, okay? They go 9-3. That means they beat 3 of the teams that I just mentioned, at least. They would have had to beat 3 of Tennessee, Notre Dame, Clemson, Miami, SMU, and Georgia Tech. All those are road games or neutral site. Think about it this way. Remember Alabama a year ago? We like to make fun of Alabama here on this podcast and how they thought they deserved a college football playoff spot over SMU because they went 9-3 and beat some really good teams. But that's kind of the point. Actually, Alabama would have made the college football playoff if SMU beat Clemson in the ACC title game. Alabama was going to get that last spot over 10-2 Miami in the regular season. Why? Because even though Alabama lost to some pretty bad teams like Vanderbilt and Oklahoma a year ago, they also beat really good teams and they had a tough schedule. They beat Georgia last year. So they had a legitimate chance to make the college football playoff as that 12th and final seed, but Clemson was the bid stealer a year ago from Alabama. The point is, I don't think Syracuse would ever get the respect that Alabama did. But when you look at the Orange's schedule, if they go 9-3, that will give them a chance to go to the college football playoff. And to just spoil ahead to what I'm going to talk about in the third segment here on this podcast, Syracuse went 9-3 last year. They had no chance at the college football playoff. Why? Their schedule. Yeah, their schedule helped them go 9-3, but also it wasn't impressive enough in front of the committee to sit there and say they legitimately deserve a look at the college football playoff. 10-2 Miami had a shot, but 9-3 Alabama had the best chance. Syracuse was in the 20s. They had no chance. They still went 9-3. The point is that even though the schedule was difficult, Syracuse does have that chance to make the college football playoff because if they have a strong regular season with the schedule that they have, it means that they have a pretty impressive resume. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. Your ceiling for Syracuse football and what you think needs to happen in order for Syracuse to reach its potential. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments section below and whether or not you believe that Syracuse has a chance to make the college football playoff. To me, if everything breaks right, they hit on their quarterback play, the young guys, even though they're a little inexperienced, they prove to be good pretty much right away. I think their ceiling is 9-3 with a shot at making the college football playoff. But coming up, we'll talk about the floor for Syracuse football. What happens if things don't break their way? Are they still a bowl team for this upcoming season? I'll try to answer that for you next here on Locked On Syracuse. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following along the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling, right? You go with your buddies to a baseball game. You're all excited. You're jacked up for it. It's really fun in the first few innings, but then all of a sudden it kind of gets a little bit boring maybe at a baseball game. I don't know. Maybe that's just how I feel when going to a game. You start hitting the fourth, fifth, and sixth inning, and it's just a wall at that point. And of course, the game starts to pick up after the seventh inning stretch. But you kind of hit that wall midway through the game, especially when you got all the pitching changes that happen. And you want to make it more thrilling? Well, that's the perfect time to get in with FanDuel because, hey, same live bets, same game parlays, all of that is offered on FanDuel. And guess what? It's the perfect time to sign up for FanDuel because if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5, and if they win, get $150 in bonus bets. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. We just discussed what happens with Syracuse football if everything breaks right for them, right? They get really strong quarterback play. The quarterback obviously would thrive under Jeff Nixon's offense. The defense holds its own. The secondary, with a lot of inexperience and youth in there, they perform over expectations or they just break out right away. Like we talked about with a guy like Demetrius Samuel Jr. They end up winning a lot of games against tough competition. They could go 9-3 and make the college football playoff. But as I led off this show, Syracuse is one of the most unpredictable teams in college football for 2025 because most of their roster, or at least their starting lineup, is brand new. It just is what it is. All their players basically from last year that were really good, made all ACC, they're gone. It's a whole new cast of characters, but the coaching staff in large part is the same from a year ago. We talked about the ceiling. What about the floor? Is Syracuse a bowl team no matter what? Maybe things don't go their way, but they'll still manage to win 6 games and make a bowl for the 4th straight season. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. But I'll be honest, as optimistic as I can get about the ceiling for Syracuse football, I am also equally pessimistic about the floor for Syracuse football. Yeah, they could win 9 games and make the college football playoff. I could also see this team winning 4 games and missing a bowl altogether. That's the way I see Syracuse football, a floor-ceiling combination. And how would Syracuse only win 4 games in 2025? I think it goes in large part to what I said in the first segment about how Syracuse football goes 9-3. It's the same stuff, just really in reverse. Talk about a quarterback, right? You got Steve Angeli in there, Rickie Collins in there. They're battling it out for who is going to be the starting quarterback. It's likely going to be Steve Angeli, the guy they got from Notre Dame. But still, it could be Rickie Collins. He was named the starting quarterback before Steve Angeli arrived on campus. The two of those quarterbacks have played a combined 5 years in college football. Steve Angeli, 3 years at Notre Dame. Rickie Collins, 2 years at LSU. So there is some experience, at least in college football, with those guys. But combined, they also only have 87 career passing attempts. 80 for Steve Angeli, 7 for Rickie Collins. Nobody, that includes myself and pretty much anyone around the country, has any clue what either is going to look like this upcoming season. I hope that they're good, or at least really one of them has to be good because only one can start. I hope. It's possible. It's on the table that Syracuse can have a great year with one of these quarterbacks. But it's also possible that neither of them are ready to be a starting quarterback in the ACC with the schedule that they have coming up. And when I look at Syracuse's roster, I don't think they have a good enough roster to where they can overcome mediocre to poor quarterback play and still make a bowl. Is their run game really going to be good enough to overcome that? I think it could be decent. I don't see it being able to overcome poor quarterback play. What about the defense? Could the defense be good? Could it be better than last year? Last year it wasn't very good, honestly. Yeah, it could be pretty good, but will it be good enough to overcome bad quarterback play? Because you need to be excellent in other areas in order to overcome not having a great quarterback. Is Syracuse's roster good enough in other areas to where if Steve Angeli next season throws for 2,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, actually, maybe let's call it 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Point is it good enough to overcome that? To me, the answer is probably not. I just don't see it. And so that's why, well, that's one of the reasons why I say, hey, yeah, they have a high ceiling. They also have a pretty low floor. And also, when you look at the schedule, look, it provides upside because if you go 9-3 with it, you might be able to make the college football playoff at 9-3 with that schedule. But it's also, Syracuse could be a really good team. But unfortunately, the schedule is too challenging. That's why oftentimes I have compared Syracuse football to what Georgia Tech was a year ago. I think Georgia Tech was better than their record. Georgia Tech last year in the regular season went 7-5. They were better than that. Their schedule was really challenging. It happens. But I think if Georgia Tech had Syracuse's schedule, they could have also gone 9-3. That's my thought on them. And I could see Syracuse having that type of season. But when you're talking about a floor, talk about the 6 road games that they have. If they lose all 6, not saying it will happen, but if they lose all 6, then they got no margin for error in any of their home games, which are UConn, Colgate. They'll probably win both of those games. But then you got Duke, Pitt, North Carolina, and Boston College. You got no margin for error if you lose your 6 road games. So the floor for Syracuse football, in my opinion, is 4-8. I don't want them to go 4-8. I'm a Syracuse fan. I'm a Syracuse alum. I don't necessarily think they're going to go 4-8, but we're talking about a floor ceiling combination here. Their best is probably 9 regular season wins. Their worst is probably 4 regular season wins. But I want to hear from you right now in the comments section below. Do you think that Syracuse is a bowl team no matter what? That maybe things don't necessarily break their way, but they'll still manage to make a bowl? Comment your thoughts in the comment section below, because coming up, we'll compare the two teams, 2025 to 2024, and the expectations for both. That's coming up next on Locked On Syracuse. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and we still got plenty more to talk about here on today's show. We are going to compare the 2025 expectations for Syracuse football to the 2024 expectations for the Orange. Let's do it. I want to throw it to you right now, okay? What were your expectations for the 2024 team versus what your expectations are for the 2025 team? Your floor ceiling combination. I'd love to hear it in the comments section below from last year to this year. When I compare the two squads, first and foremost, okay, before we even give a floor ceiling combination, I think that last year's team, it's actually, I don't think it, I know it. Last year's team was built on a lot of experienced returning players and a few key transfer portal additions. By and large, they were a veteran team. They were a team where a lot of players were going to run out of eligibility at the end of the season. Or they were simply too good to the point where we had a feeling that they were going to enter the NFL draft when the season ended. Oronde Gadsden comes to mind. LaQuinn Allen comes to mind at running back, right? Those were players that, yeah, they still had another year of eligibility, but I think we kind of all had a feeling that at least one of them was going to enter the NFL draft. I almost said NBA there because that's coming up soon. One of them was going to enter the NFL draft and the other maybe would. Turns out LaQuinn Allen did, right? That being said, I think the two squads, they share a similar upside. For 2024, I think I had Syracuse's upside at 10-2 in the regular season. The difference, though, is 2024 team, I really didn't feel there was a world where they would miss a bowl. The only way I felt they would miss a bowl game, and I really don't factor this in because you can't really predict it, is if Kyle McCord got hurt. If Kyle McCord got hurt and they were turning to their backup quarterback for basically the entire year, that's how they would miss a bowl game. But I thought worst case scenario for Syracuse football in 2024, due to their experience and their quarterback play with Kyle McCord, worst case scenario, they were going to go 6-6. They also did not have the most difficult schedule in the world. And that's another reason why I was like, you know what? This team's going to make a bowl no matter what. It may be disappointing if they go 6-6, but they will at least make a bowl. Their upside's 10-2. So overall, I projected Syracuse football in 2024 to go 8-4, because what I like to do is, and I highly suggest this to you when you're making a win prediction, is try to think of the ceiling and the floor and then split the difference. You don't have to heed my advice on that, but that's just how I like to do it. So I'm telling you right now, is split the difference. Okay, they could win 10 games. They can also win 6 games. Okay, that's an average of 8. So 8-4. They end up going 9-3, somewhere in that range. But bringing it back to 2025, what did I say their ceiling was? 9 wins in the regular season. What was their floor that I said in the last segment? 4 wins. So you add the 2 together, you get 13. You divide by 2. That's 6.5 regular season wins for Syracuse football in 2025. Obviously, this kind of goes without saying, but Syracuse cannot win a half game. You can't win a half game. But hey, I'm at least expecting that Syracuse will make a bowl in 2025. I think best case scenario, they go 9-3 and have a shot at the college football playoff. Worst case, they go 4-8. They miss a bowl altogether. You meet in the middle. They're a solid bowl team. They're either 6-6 or 7-5. That's a little bit higher than what the odds makers are saying. A lot of them are projecting Syracuse to have 5.5 wins in the regular season. I'm saying 6.5 wins for Syracuse football in 2025. Rarely does everything break right in a regular season, but also rarely does everything break wrong in a regular season. So that's why ultimately split the difference. I think Syracuse wins between 6 and 7 games this upcoming season. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. Your win prediction for Syracuse football in 2025, comment in the comment section below. As far as what is coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the future, tomorrow we're going to do something similar. Except we're going to change sports. We're going to go over a Syracuse basketball floor ceiling combination. We haven't really talked a lot of basketball here on this podcast. Quite frankly, not a lot has happened with Syracuse basketball. There's been some news out there about some of the teams that they're playing in non-conference, but I'll be honest with you, it's really not newsworthy. Like, there's no big out-of-conference opponent that has been announced yet, so that's why we really haven't talked a lot of Syracuse basketball, but we will tomorrow. A floor-ceiling combination for that team. Thursday, we will go back to Syracuse football, and we will do the wide receiver position preview as we gear up for the 2025 college football season. And here on this podcast, my goal is to do a position preview for every position group for Syracuse football. I believe we started the series with the defensive backs, which you can check out on YouTube, Locked On Syracuse, or wherever you get your podcasts on any audio platform. Just type in Locked On Syracuse, and I'm sure you can find it. I forgot the title of the vid or the pod, but defensive backs, it's there for Locked On Syracuse. Okay, so that's what's coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the future. And thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. For your second listen, you can check out the Locked On Portal Show with football recruiting expert Brian Smith. There's going to be a lot of recruiting news as well coming out over the next few weeks with Syracuse football. July 5th is a big date for the Orange. That's when Calvin Russell is announcing his commitment. Syracuse is a finalist for him. Julius Miles is also announcing. Syracuse is top 3 for him, all on July 5th. And we know that Brian Smith is going to have the latest rumors and signings each and every day on the Locked On Portal Show. Obviously, we'll cover it here on Locked On Syracuse as well. But you can be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. You can find the Locked On Portal Show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit the like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. And if you could just do me a favor, since you've already made it this far in the podcast, first of all, thank you so much for making it this far in the podcast. Truly means a ton. Just do me a favor. Just tell one or two, if you're close to Syracuse friends, about the Locked On Syracuse podcast. Say good or bad. You could talk about how, hey, this Jackson Holzer kid, he's an idiot. He's got no idea what he's talking about, but you should listen anyway. I'd love for you to tell one or two of your friends about Locked On Syracuse so this channel can grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. And I will see you all again soon.